Do you work for a water or wastewater testing lab in California? If so, grab your pen and paper because there are changes you need to make note of. Even if you're not in California, you need to pay attention because this change is likely to affect you in the future. On May 5th, 2020, the State Water Resources Control Board adopted new regulations to revamp the Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program, also known as ELAP. This new regulation will affect the over 650 laboratories overseen by ELAP, which regulates testing of drinking water, wastewater discharges, and hazardous waste cleanup sites throughout the state of California. So what's the news? In a nutshell, your lab is now required to implement a nationally accepted standard called the 2016 NELAC Institute T&I standard. The T&I standard is based on the ISO/IEC 17025 standard and is used to manage all factors that can potentially affect the quality of lab results, like quality of supplies, equipment, and training of laboratory staff. In the big picture, this is great news because the new standard benefits everyone in California. Right now, however, it's going to take energy and determination for your lab to learn and pivot to meet this new standard. As you know, managing accreditation is a full-time job. But don't panic. The best news of all is that you have 3 years to implement the system before full compliance is required. A2LA has even put together a 2-page guide on accreditation to the T&I standard. So the question becomes, what can you do over the next 3 years to get your lab T&I certified, and how can Qualtrics help? I reached out to Dr. Tony Francis with SAW Environmental to help answer some of these questions. First off, there are new quality management system requirements. According to the standard, your lab will be responsible for developing a quality manual addressing QA/QC items, reviewing it annually, performing internal audits, and maintaining lab records. Dr. Francis said that though labs currently need to have a QMS, the requirements were a lot less up until now. In Module 2, Section 4, it specifies that your lab will be responsible for listing personnel and their responsibilities and authorities, the flow of work in the organization, and document control. In terms of document control, you will need to have an organized system showing which documents you have, current revision statuses, effective dates, etc. You will also need to record corrective and preventative actions. Document control specifically is one of those main areas where findings occur. The main reason being that documents are not up to date. Another area that Dr. Francis says that many findings occur is in distribution. Dr. Francis said that a part of document control is asking how many copies of the quality manual exist and where are they. He added that when the quality manual gets updated, you will need to retrieve the old manuals and replace them with new ones. That has to be written down and recorded somewhere. This will have a huge effect on the way you organize your lab, the procedures you put in place, and the way training for personnel needs to be monitored and represented. You will also be required to run and report 1 passing proficiency test per year. Under the 2016 T&I standard, labs are required to pass 2 rounds of PTs per year. Dr. Francis said that California labs received an exception and only had to do it once per year. PTs are great because they are the one outside test that will demonstrate how your whole process is working from sample receiving to analysis and reporting. These tests can be burdensome for labs as it can be challenging to report on the process. This is one of the major changes in Module 1 of the standard. Fortunately, Qualtrics has created a best-in-class proficiency testing workflow. The workflow allows you to schedule and assign PTs, provide instructions, and create a place to store the results. These results are then sent to the quality manager to look for nonconformances. They are automatic reminders and emails that can be set up to keep the process on time and hold your team accountable. The results are always available as a report when it's time for an audit. Another thing is that lab personnel will now need to prove appropriate credentials and training. Module 2, Section 5 is probably the grayest area of all. The standard lays out the credentials required for various positions within the lab. However, these requirements are very vague and many labs are confused on whether or not they qualify. Dr. Francis shared that California actually came out with their own requirements. The state gives a couple options on how to prove that an employee is qualified for the position. Qualtrics has an entire module in our product where you can record and track personnel credentials, resumes, and transcripts. Having these documents on file will be very helpful when it comes time for an audit. These are only a few highlights of changes required to the 2016 NELAC Institute T&I standard. You can find a full report by visiting the State Water Resources Control Board. We know that gaining accreditation to new standards can be overwhelming for both established and new labs alike. We would encourage you to reach out to ELAP and your accrediting body as soon as possible in order to get started with this accreditation process. While you're at it, let us show you how Qualtrics can support your path to compliance.